More than 250,000 Syrians have lost their lives since armed conflict broke out in the country almost 5 years ago. It's thought that more than 11 million others have been forced from their homes.
Now, the country's main opposition group says it will attend UN peace talks in Geneva, which are aimed at ending the fighting. Well, we can now talk to Afshin Shahi, who's a lecturer in Middle East politics at the University of Bradford. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we know that this opposition group, the main opposition group, is willing to attend the talks. What difference is that going to make? Because obviously, when we've been talking about Syria, the frustration has been there's been no agreement yet.
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, Syria is already one of the most complex conflicts of the 20th century. There are so many different sides, there are so many different parties within the framework of the civil war. And these parties not only represent an internal interest, but they're also representing external interests, primarily representing the interest of the main players in the region like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, despite the fact that some organizations, some opposition organizations has kind of expressed their willingness that they're going to be part and parcel of this negotiation. Nonetheless, there are a lot of important sides that are basically playing a very important role in the Syrian civil war absent. For example, the so-called Islamic State, despite the fact that the world doesn't want to negotiate with the Islamic State, nonetheless, you really cannot bring an end to the conflict.
So can they make a difference at these talks then? What influence will they have in pushing the agenda forward?
The thing is, I mean, I personally very much doubt it if this is going to result in anything meaningful, at least in the short term. I think the current situation probably is going to constitute a framework for conflict management rather than basically producing something which would result to a lasting peace. Because at the moment, the burning issue is to create a ceasefire and at the same time making sure that aid can reach people who are affected by the civil war. So primarily it's going to be about conflict management at this stage.
So you think, by and large, the issue of President Assad and what will happen in the long term will be left to one side?
Yes and no, because you have to remember that a lot of parties, a lot of actors that are negotiating at the moment, so they try to negotiate, they haven't reached an agreement about the future of Assad. And this has been one of the most important impediments to the negotiation so far, because certain sides, like the Saudi side, the Turkish side, and so many other parties that are representing the interest of these countries, they believe that Assad should not have any future whatsoever in Syria. And at the same time, those parties that are supported by countries like Iran or Russia, for that matter, they believe that actually Assad should have a place in the future of the country. And that obviously has created some impediments for the negotiation.
When you characterize the problems they face, as you just have in all your answers, makes you wonder what day one, question one is actually like when they sit around the table.
As I mentioned, I mean, at the moment, I mean, they're not really going to sit around the table because they're not even going to see each other face to face. This is going to be about a proximity kind of conversation. I mean, they're going to sit in different rooms and there will be some kind of shuttle diplomacy between them. And maybe this talk is going to go on for a very long time, maybe up to 6 months. And again, very much like what happened last time or the time before that, there is no guarantee whatsoever if even in terms of kind of conflict management, we could actually reach a meaningful resolution. And the problem for that is because currently nobody is winning or losing on the ground. And the best scenario for a negotiation is a situation where there is a clear winning side or a losing side, because usually people who are winning are more interested to negotiate.
I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. Politically, there is no winners and losers because there are so many factions. But the fact is, on a humanitarian level, it's the people on the ground who are obviously losing. That is the problem, and surely that demands then international intervention.
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, Syria is the human tragedy of our time, and ultimately, this is the people who are paying the price. And nonetheless, we have to remember that despite the fact that a lot of countries are already involved, already intervening in Syria, but they haven't been able to resolve the humanitarian issues. And as long as basically the important players and the important actors in the region can't reach a minimal compromise, I very much doubt it if the current round of talks could lead into a meaningful resolution.
It's quite a depressing thought, really.
It is very depressing, I'm afraid.
Dr. Afshin Shahi, thank you so much for joining us
pleasure.
and going through that this morning with us. Thank you.
Let's see, the time is